All right, everybody, welcome to our, whoops, I'm the one making all kinds of noise now. Okay, so welcome to our session today, and we're going to be covering a lot of information, and for some of you, this is going to be new information. For some of you, it's going to be review, a reminder, but we may do a little energy work while we're at it. But basically, we're living in a world that is more toxic than I think any of us really know or believe. And I think you wouldn't be coming to this session or listening to this session if you weren't aware of this, and if you weren't interested, and you weren't awake enough to be interested in knowing what's going on so that you can keep yourself healthy and you can be responsible for your own health, because that's basically what it's come to these days. We've got to all take care of ourselves and build our own communities around ourselves to stay in the lifestyle that we each choose to have. So the topic of today is living in a dirty world and staying healthy. So and it's nice to see some faces that I know from past sessions. So hi Zane, hi Marcia. And if any of you have not heard some of the stuff I'm going to talk to you about, and if you find it upsetting at all, or you just can't believe it, or you think Ian's just really gone off the deep end this time, that's all right. You're not the first one that's ever said that about me. But I want you to remember the heart center tapping points. And that area is really good for letting go of anything that you hear that might shock you, or that, oh my gosh, my lifestyle is a mess and I got so much to do to fix it up. Don't let any of that bother you. Just tap and let it go. Let go of the emotions so you can let the information in, and then you can process the information on your own as you want and utilize it, not utilize it. If you need some help with identifying what relates to you and what doesn't, and how to do some changes about that, feel free to call me and we can talk about whether there'd be a fit for me doing a session with you. So, we're flexible, and the word doctor means teacher. And so that's what I want to do in today's session. I want to support you to know as much as I can share with you, so that you can make the decisions for your life and your lifestyle, and you can not be surprised by anything coming along the pike. Okay, so my question to you, and it's a rhetorical question, is do you really know your body? And if so, how well do you know your body? Do you ever find yourself resenting your body? Some of us on this call have had injuries in the past. We've had health conditions in the past. And did we resent our bodies when we were going through this? It's not your body's fault. And, the question you need to ask is, how am I toxing out my body? Because basically the body really only knows how to rebalance in order to survive. And the body knows how to heal itself if you just stop toxing it out. And you may not be doing anything consciously. It may just be the society we're living in. So anyway, very short story of me. I was the firstborn into a couple of newlyweds that they weren't young, 24 and 30, but they were both smokers, inside smokers. And I grew up, when I was a very young baby, I was very colicky, because even though my mother was trying to be healthy and breastfeeding, she was full of the thing that I was allergic to. And so, here was this toxic environment I was coming into. And so for the first 6 years of my life, I was constantly getting sick, especially on holidays. And maybe that was because there were so many other people around bringing their cooties in, but also bringing their smoke and their frequencies. But I had my tonsils taken out, and I've found since then that made me really vulnerable to a lot of things. Looking back, there was a huge percentage of children in my generation that had their tonsils yanked out, which happened a lot, who came down with polio. High incidence. And so, you go, wait a minute, what does that mean? Well, the tonsils are where our body holds sulfur. And we need sulfur in our bodies to, be regulated. And that was just a storage area. And also, the tonsils were part of the immune system, like the first area where anything coming in could be trapped and let go, detoxified. But no, if you had your tonsils taken out, that was gone. So after that, I was really healthy kid. I went out and ran around the neighborhood every day after school, and just my mother was really good at fixing healthy food, and got tons of exercise. And in the summer, we swam every day of the summer, and that was great. But the first semester I went to college, I gained 60 pounds. It's like, that was not when I wanted to be a fatty. And then I couldn't lose it. And I resented my body, and I couldn't understand what was going on in my body. And I was just eating dorm food. Dorm food. So anyway, that was just the beginning of me saying, hey, something's got to shift here. So for a while, like after I got out of grad school, I was still fighting this battle of the bulge, and feeling frustration and shame and anger and resentment, and lots of questions about, what's wrong with me? Why am I fat? And all my friends are beautiful, and they're going out on all these dates and all this stuff. And I met a gynecologist that a friend referred me to, who said, hey, I could put you on diet pills, and that'll help you. And they were these cute little blue pills. And so I started taking those, and man, I had so much energy, and I could dance all night. And oh my goodness, I was just, 2 hours of sleep, and I was raring to go. And I did lose all this weight, which I never gained back, which was great. But I didn't know he had put me on amphetamines. I was on speed, and I didn't know it. So anyway, I did notice, though, that if I forgot to take a pill one day, I just couldn't get out of bed the next day. It was just, I was dead. So anyway, I was glad when the doctor stopped writing me prescriptions, and he went out of business anyway. And my body just kind of came back. And, later, autoimmune, but there were a few times, I think I took one flu shot, and I ended up having a lot of weirdness in my 30s and 40s. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about, is how I discovered, through all my studies and getting into natural medicine, how I discovered how I was toxing myself out with a lifestyle, and how to get rid of it, and how to keep it clean and keep it healthy. So first of all, let's go over the US health numbers, the statistics. They're horrible. And the question is, how can this be? Did you know that the US has the highest health and medical costs of all developed countries in the world? And as of 2021-22, not even 23, we have the lowest life expectancy at birth of developed countries. We have the highest death rates for avoidable and treatable conditions in our country. We have the highest maternal and infant mortality rates of all developed countries. Among the highest suicide rates of all other countries. The highest rate of people with multiple chronic conditions. And we have a very big obesity rate, which is way above the average, like twice the average. So we have the highest rate of pharmaceutical use in our country of any other country. And there are only 2 countries in the world, New Zealand and the United States, that allow public advertising of drugs and pharmaceuticals on television to the public. So I have a sister who's a physician's assistant, and she's constantly saying, I get these weird, wacko people that come in, they've self-diagnosed, and they're telling me from TV what meds I need to prescribe to them. You know, she going, I'm not going to do that unless I know that they need it. But they all know what's right for them because the advertisement tells them. And antidepressants are up in U.S. women 2 times what they've ever been before, just in the last couple of years. And women in our country are taking twice as many, as well as they're on them for twice as long, and they're not helping. So that is the bad news about how the pharmaceuticals, the drugs, the medicine, all that is not doing what we think they're doing. And so it's really up to us to be responsible for taking back our health. And we can do that. And there are many practitioners out there that are helping with this. Okay. So then we look at the agencies like the CDC and the FDA and OSHA and everybody else, and they have passed some really strange rules and regulations, etc., over the last few years. And they have passed things that never would have gotten through before. But if you follow closely, you'll see that the people that head up all these 3-letter agencies end up either getting into government, or they go from one to another, or they go from a pharmaceutical company into the FDA, into the CDC, or backwards. And some even interchange with the Department of Defense, the military. So if you really look at some of these players that, you know, are up there as the health advocates, so, you know, by their titles, that may not be what their background is. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about body basics. Our bodies come from the earth. Our earth has negatively charged ions as the energy, the scalar waves, the earth energy, what is put out through the toroidal field of the earth, of our bodies, of every living thing, and of the cosmic towers. You know, when we talk about toroidal fields and negatively charged ions, this is natural. This is the way it's supposed to be. This is what structured water and good energy is. Also, keep in mind that anything created naturally, our bodies, nature, plants, animals, everything that's natural can regenerate itself. It can heal itself. It doesn't need anything that it doesn't already have. It just needs to have the toxins removed. But also remember that anything man-made needs help. It can't regenerate on its own. Sometimes it can be fixed, but sometimes it can't. So that's the difference here. And when they're talking about a synthetic supplement or a synthetic pharmaceutical or a synthetic part of DNA or RNA in a vaccine or a shot, these are not normal. They're not natural. They don't regenerate. They don't cooperate with the natural body. They are man-made. So they're different. The body doesn't know how to be sick. The body, like I said before, knows how to rebalance and knows how to heal itself if it's not totally detoxed. So we have two major phases of detox. We have phase 1 and phase 2 detox systems. Whenever we put something into our mouth, at first it goes to the liver. The liver is an amazing organ. It's one of the organs that regenerates itself. You can cut out a big chunk of your liver and it'll just grow itself back. But it is also the thing that starts the whole detoxification process. I mean, yeah, I mentioned the tonsils and other things along the pathway, but once it gets to the liver, that's where it does some magic chemically. And sometimes it will change whatever you've put into your body, and it will be able to then be released from the body. Other times, it's gone through the liver's processes, and it's even more toxic because it's partially broken down molecules, and it still needs the other organs to hop in and take care of the rest of the phase. So the main antitoxin or detox organs of our body, the biggest organ for detoxification is our skin. That's why it's so important to know what you're putting on your skin, what you're touching your skin to. When they're talking about vaccine shedding, it's not the vapor, it's not airborne, it's touching and then getting the skin to skin or wet, sweat, saliva, other body fluids, where you're exchanging, you're getting their RNA or DNA, the other person, on you, and you can share all kinds of strange things that way. Okay, the lungs are the biggest one. I mean, the skin is the biggest organ, then the lungs. Did I say lungs before, or did I say skin? Okay, skin first, then lungs. Yes, we do detox by breathing out stuff. The blood system and the lymph system go through the lungs, and they put out toxins in the lungs that we breathe out. So that's part of the system. Liver, we mentioned, and then the kidney, bladder, those are major. They take some of the really toxic stuff out of the liver and they break it down further, mix it with water, and then they let it out. And of course, the bowels. So we are such an intricate system, everything working in balance with itself, unless we're putting artificial stuff in or we're cutting out an organ, like, cut out my gallbladder, or, whatever. If we keep our organs and they're functioning and they're in balance with each other, our bodies are amazing. So then there's this whole concept that's kind of is the basis for some of what environmental medicine people like me talk about, is the germ theory versus the terrain theory. And it's new science, it's the new biology, and it leaves the concept that every time a virus walked by, we got a plague or we got a pandemic, or, that's what causes this, that, the other. Well, has anybody actually seen what a virus looks like? Viruses are not alive. Virus comes from the word, it has to do with toxins. And so, yes, it could be toxic, but what if you were living in a toxic environment? What if you had sewer all around you like they used to in the Dark Ages? What if you were drinking water that had all kinds of nasty microorganisms that, were, the sewage and the drinking water were all connecting? That's something that the Dark Ages people used to live with. I mean, that was what society was like. And so our society today is very different in the sense that we have learned about hygiene, about when people come together and live together, you're supposed to, have a cleaner environment, blah, blah, blah. But to a certain extent, because our body is covered with our own little microorganisms that keep us healthy. So back in COVID, when they were giving everybody the hand sanitizer, and I had a friend downtown that was using Clorox wipes, and she was wondering why her hands were bleeding. It's like, come on. And this is the same woman that sticks her phone in her bra. So it's like, you're helpless. I can't, you don't listen. But basically you need your own microbiota, your microbiome on your skin and inside of your body to help you to be who you are and to be healthy and to fight off all the things that are bad. So I've got different categories I'm going to go over with you guys. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I mean, I don't need to be, feel free to interrupt me. But we're going to jump around through a lot of different things. And, like I said before, for you, a lot of you, all this is just a reminder. You already know it. But for some of these things that I'm saying might be a little way out for you. Okay, so let's talk about GMO foods. If it's really genetically modified, it could be all kinds of things. But if it's Roundup ready, there's 6 main crops that are Roundup ready. That's corn and soybeans and alfalfa and sugar beets and canola. And yeah, canola oil is not healthy for you. And there's one other one, and what is it? I forget what the 6th one is. But those are the main ones that you gotta be careful of. If it's not marked non-GMO organic, those things have been genetically modified to include glyphosate in their genetic structure so that they can be sprayed with Roundup when they're growing. No weeds will exist in the field, but they will be strong and healthy because they are immune to Roundup. But if you eat it, it goes into you. And I can't tell you how many clients I've had that have been really, really allergic to glyphosate. And it just, all kinds of different symptoms. Okay. Anything that's really processed, if you buy a box or a bag of something and there are words that you can't even pronounce, you might want to walk away. If the list is, that long, look at what's in everything you eat. At first, this is a real pain in the neck. I gave up gluten almost 40 years ago, and I gave up corn almost 45 years ago. And what's interesting is that at first it was horrible. Every time I go to the grocery store, it would be hours because I'd be reading everything on all the boxes just to make sure I wasn't getting into areas where I didn't want to be. But you'll get used to it, and then you'll know the things that are safe and the brands that are good and all that kind of stuff. I just heard that they've just come out with a new wonderful thing that they're going to start washing organic fruits and vegetables with it, but it's a toxic substance. And I forget the name of what it is. But if any of y'all know it, let me know. But so be careful and wash your organic fruits and vegetables too, because they're trying to slip stuff in. Wheat is sprayed with Roundup, even though it's not Roundup ready. It's sprayed so that it dries up real quickly on the shaft, and so it's easier to get the grain off of the shaft. So that is part of why so many people are having to give up wheat. It's because they're spraying it with Roundup. There's also the fact that many people are really, truly sensitive to gluten, which has been modified into the wheat over the years. So, and non-digestible oils. Oils can be really horrible. And so the best oils are the organic extra virgin olive oil or organic extra virgin coconut oil. Those are the best ones out there. I wouldn't eat anything that wasn't organic, but the seed oils are hard to digest. They can cause some problems. And I had a horrible, horrible allergic reaction in my youth, even before they started using Roundup on the corn, to corn oil. And part of it was the way the corn oil was produced. So watch the kind of oils you're eating. And if you're going to fast food restaurants or even other food restaurants, a lot of times you may find yourself with indigestion after a meal, and it may be because of the bad oils. Okay, household tools and just things around your house that you need to look for. I hope none of you are using Teflon or aluminum cooking ware. Teflon is not healthy. It's plasticized. It scrapes off over the years and gets in your gut, and you can't digest it. It's one of those forever kinds of things. And aluminum is not your friend. It can cause dementia. So you don't need that. Okay, then you got flame retardants in furniture, in draperies, in clothing, in mattresses. Those things put out nasty air. Outgassing, if you replace your carpet or replace your curtains, or even other parts of furniture in your house, there will be an outgassing. And that can be because of that can be the polymers and the pastes and glues used, or that can be some of these other flame retardants and sprays and things in them, but they can be really horrible. Marcia, did you have your hand up? Yes?
Yes. How long does that stay in your furniture?
It really depends on what it is. And I suggest, if you're bringing something new into your house, or you've had, carpets replaced or something like that, that you get big fans and you open your windows. Hopefully you do it in a climate that is not going to be blowing the icebergs in the house, but you really need to let it do its thing. And some things are, take longer to outgas than others.
Go ahead. I have a couch that I've had for years and years and years and years and years.
Well, then it's probably already outgassed. It probably's taken on stuff in your environment, some of the dust and the mites and the dander, and so you got to kind of watch that too. But yeah, I'm sure your old couch is probably outgassed by now.
Thanks.
But we just have to be aware of this stuff. It might be new and beautiful and fancy from the new store, but it may be really toxic. Okay, paints and stains. If you're doing anything remodeling in that sense, be real careful. If you're an artist, I have an artist, I just went to a wonderful exhibit last weekend, and she's in a memory center right now. She's got dementia, and she was an oil painter. And if you're using oil paints or pastels, if you get the pigment on your skin, it's poisonous. So you got to be really careful. Also, all the solvents that painters use, the turpentine and all that kind of stuff, that's not your friend. Cleaning chemicals and detergents can be real dangerous. I have a hard time with a maid, and I hate to clean my own house, but if I have somebody come to help me clean, I create the things that they're going to use. And they have essential oils, they have baking soda, they have stuff that doesn't have the bad chemicals. So be aware of what's in that area. Okay, then pesticides and herbicides, we touched on that. When I lived in Mexico, at one point, we woke up in our bedroom one morning, and there were mosquitoes all over the walls because we'd left the windows open and they didn't have screens. And we called our senora and said, "Oh, we got all these mosquitoes." So she brings this little paint can thing full of DDT in and sprays it all over the house. So, they've outlawed DDT, but they're still finding residual DDT in nature. Doesn't break down. Paraquat. A lot of crops are still being sprayed and they're using paraquat. Well, that can cause Parkinson's disease. You don't want to be around these poisons. Glyphosate, we've already mentioned, it's horrible. And all of these contain heavy metals. They kill, they've been designed to kill bugs or weeds. They're killing living things. And they say, oh, they're not going to hurt you. They're not going to hurt your pets. They're just going to kill the weeds and the bugs. Well, if they're killing anything living, you're living, and so you're susceptible. So be very careful. So then we're getting into the metals. Metals are a part of this big ratio that works with everything that's going down, with all the grossly rising death rates in the whole world. But in our country, I think it's gone up like 40% just in the last year or two. A lot of it has to do with heavy metals, and we're finding them everywhere. It also has to do with yeast and fungus and things growing around with the heavy metals. And this can be in nature and it can be inside our bodies. So first of all, there's fluoride in the water. Now, do any of you know what fluoride is? Other than just a form of fluorine, where it comes from? It comes from the aluminum manufacturing industry. It was a byproduct that they couldn't find a way to get rid of it. It's also a good way to dumb down society and keep people sick and malleable. So it's legally mandated to be in city water. That's why I carry my water bottle wherever I go. And used to be when I traveled to dance weekends, I would have a whole van full of water bottles of my own good water. So be real safe. There are filters out there to filter out the fluoride, because that's that's a dangerous part of your water. Okay, how many of you have noticed in the last few years all these things going across the sky? The X's and the O's and the paths and well, I didn't ever notice those when I was growing up. I just didn't ever notice them. I don't think they were there. I think they've just kind of, they're just out there. So actually there's a big difference between a contrail and a chemtrail. And we're not going to get into that other than there have been tests on what is being dropped out of what's being let out of planes. And heavy metals are a big part of that. And there is a company or a group that specifically Geoengineering Watch .com, either .com or .org, I don't know which one it is, but you can check on that, and they've got movies, they've got videos, they've got tests, they show the actual apparatus, etc., etc. But when you see a lot of trails in the sky, I would suggest be careful and don't go outside. Sometimes you'll actually go outside and it'll smell bad. And they can drop anything they want in those chemtrails, and it'll drop with the heavy metals. That includes aluminum, and it includes, a whole array of other toxic heavy metals. And if you notice in your area where you live, because we all have different topographies, if you notice that lichens, the kind of the gray fungus stuff, are growing on the trees, even killing some of the trees. Have any of you noticed that? It's really bad here in the Appalachian Mountains and the Blue Ridge Mountains, but it's just covering the stems and the branches of trees, and then the trees are dying. And that's from what they're dropping from these chemtrails. So metals in our food, in our water, also are showing up because of the pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers. And some of these big algae blooms that are happening in the ocean or in Florida in Lake Okeechobee, some of the other things, that's due to runoffs from agricultural fields where they're not doing the sustainable farming, which uses everything natural, where the earth can specifically be replenished and grow healthy things and produce and cover the ground so there's never a dust bowl situation where the topsoil blows away, and where everything can continue growing very carefully and very naturally. But these are the fields that are totally big ag farmed, and they kill everything on the field. Then they put in the fertilizers, they plant the seeds, and then they fertilize until they harvest. And sometimes they'll spray with the Roundup in the meantime. And so there's nothing really healthy, and they're depleting the natural microbiome of the soil in that area. So that's why it's so important to look for private farms in your area. You can go to farmwatch.com, and I don't know, that might be org too, but look it up, FarmWatch, and you can find an organic farm near you that sells all sustainable plants, vegetables, fruits, farm animals, if you eat, if you're a carnivore. But all these things are very important to us. There was a time in my life when I went through some really hard times in a nasty divorce and blah, blah, blah. And I literally was down to my last $20 bill. And it was a decision between buying organic groceries or not. And that's where I said, I deserve it. And organic is the way to go. But you got to make sure that you know the sources where you're buying it. Okay, let's talk about air. Any comments or questions? All right. So air. When I go into the grocery store or I go to a meeting, there will be people that walk by me and I have to walk away because I can smell the phthalates from their detergents. Any of you have that situation? Yeah, yeah. Phthalates are neurotoxins. You don't ever want to use a plug-in or a detergent that has a chemical odor. Deodorants, I don't know how people live in their bodies when they put these things on their bodies and around their bodies. Air fresheners oftentimes have, these fancy chemical smells that are poison. Any kind of chemical aromas are bad. Natural aromas are wonderful. Make sure, you can use all kinds of scented candles and everything, but they have to be natural essential oils. Then you're getting some health benefits from it too. Okay? Or go unscented everything. Because I've had clients that have had to, I had a mother-daughter team, and the daughter was grown, she was working, but she was so sick that she was missing work, and her mother was debilitated, and the doctors didn't know what was wrong with her. So I asked her, do you have any of those Glade plug-ins? And she goes, oh yeah, we've got some of those in our house. I said, well, unplug them. And she did. And she called me the next day and she said, I could go back to work again. My mother's out of bed. It's that, either or. You don't want to poison yourself. And that's what our society is teaching us to do. But if we're aware and we're wise, we can stay healthy. Okay, so phthalates are horrible. Okay, so when you see a beam of sunlight coming into your house, do you ever see little clouds of dust? I do in my house. I'm sorry about that, but I do. And you ask, what are these dust particles made of? They could be bits from the garbage dump. They could be ground up or burned car tires, wall paint. They could be bits of other people's hair or skin. They could be microplastics, and they could be stuff from chemtrails. They could be animal dander. They could be so many weird, horrible things. So it's important to get a good air filter. I've tried lots of different air filters. I will endorse one, but I will unendorse it too. How many of you have ever heard, well, Patrick, do you sell air filters? No, you don't do air filters, but air is very, very important. And there are some brands, if you want to text me separately, I'll tell you, I won't advertise for anybody here. But there's one that's really good, and I've got 2 of their air filters, and they do a great job of recirculating the air, but they have horrible EMFs. Yeah, so I can't have them on when I'm around. So you gotta, weigh and look for things that are safe in all areas. There's in Australia, there was a whole movement called, it's an organization called Dust Safe. It's a program, and they were measuring what the dust in homes in Australia included. They said there were trace metals, there were radioactive elements, there were antibiotic resistant genes, and microplastics, and PFAS, which are perfluorinated chemicals found in firefighting foam, stain, and water protection for fabric and carpets, and other things. So it's just kind of what we've already said. If something's outgassing, it's in your air. So it's real important to keep the fans going and to allow air to filter. When it's warm enough, I will open all my windows in my house, let it blow through, and then if it's cold outside, I'll close my windows again. But I know that I'm recycling the air in my house every day. So that's real important. Okay, that takes us to EMFs. You've heard me talk about EMFs before, but I'll do a really quick review. We're not going to really go into that, other than if you've ever been to my website, I guess it's I can't remember whether it's Ariela Group or AnnMerkel.com. But if you go to my Facebook page, I've got these weird swirls of colored light, and that's what Wi-Fi looks like when you take certain kinds of photographs of it, because it's really there. It's just we don't pick up the spectrum with our eyesight, but it's still around. So EMFs can be in your environment through Wi-Fi, through repeater antennas for 5G. If you're living in a city, you probably have noticed things on your poles, little boxes, things on light posts, maybe in your trees, up and down the streets. Those are taking 5G from towers and from the satellites, and then going right and following people with their 5G phones. So they're actually doing that, and they're used for other, nefarious things too. They're not all your friend. Definitely not from an EMF standpoint. So we've got cell towers up these days for 4G, 4G LTE, and 5G. And they all are different frequencies, and they're playing with the frequencies. In our area, we don't have a lot of towers, but some of us that are sensitive note that they're changing the frequencies here and there. And it's bothering us on some days, and you can hear this really loud ringing, and other days it's not so bad. So be aware. Know where you can go and where you can't if you've got ringing in the ears, if you are getting kind of the slowness about you, if you're getting brain fog. That could be because of EMFs. It could be other things. All right, smart dust. That is the microscopic sensors that are distributed in the environment for the monitoring of different assets. And we are included as assets. So they're actually putting fog out in the dust, tiny, tiny little nanoparticles to be there and to kind of work in tandem with some of our electronic tools. So just be aware that there's so much that we don't see. Okay, if you want to know more, you can look on a site called Nanowerk, Nanowerk. But okay, imagine a cloud of sensors, each a size of grain of sand or even smaller, blown aloft by hurricane winds and relaying data on the storm to weather stations below. Okay, NOAA does this kind of thing, right? Picture an invisible sensor network embedded into the smart city's roads to monitor traffic, road surface damage, and identify available parking spaces. This is happening. Smart cities, smart houses, smart meters on your houses. Those things emit EMFs to send data, to send information, and you can walk across it and it blasts you with electromagnetic frequencies. Okay, so you really, they have positive uses for some of this technology, but it can be used against you too. And it can be just unhealthy in the meantime, whether it's being used for positive or negative uses. Blue light technologies. We're all looking at screens, or some of you are not on screens, you might be on your cell phone, but all of these use blue light technologies. And unless you have a screen over your monitor, which I've got several monitors, and they both have a filter screen that's supposed to block out the yellow light or the blue light. You don't want that because that really hurts your eyesight. It goes into your brain and it accelerates something called gene drive, which is the cutting apart of the double strand of DNA. So it actually gets in and starts to mutate your DNA. And in order for somebody to heal from this, you have to go totally blackout for 18 hours in a black room with no light, so that your body can rebalance itself and the DNA can get replenished in the right way. Did you know that LDE bulbs emit blue light? So there are companies that will sell lights that don't emit. Watch out for any kind of the tube lighting or the fluorescents, the compact fluorescents. You don't want those. They not only have the vibration, but they've got mercury in them. So if they break, that's a problem. So there are, like I said, there's some good, and if you contact me, I can refer you to a company that sells good, healthy light bulbs.
And do you see Marcia's got her hand up?
Marcy, did you have your hand up?
Where did you get the screen that you can put on your computer? That
Well,
sounds
I don't have the name of the company in front of me, but it's a company in Spain that makes them, and they can tailor them so you can have one over your flat screen TV, or they have specific monitor sizes. So I've got one like right there on my screen, and they come with adhesive on one side. I've actually got mine Scotch tape so I can use it again.
Do you have it on your TV?
I didn't put it on TV, but I have some chakra colored glasses. When I watch my TV, I put on my yellow glasses. But you can go to any online glasses manufacturers and just get regular plastic glasses that are good for working on your screens. And they protect you from the blue light.
That I do have. I don't use them, but I do have one. I have one that's red for the TV and one that's yellow for my computer, I think. And then I got them prescription.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is something in our society we have to take into consideration. There's a high incidence of people getting cataracts, people getting macular degeneration, and we can protect ourselves from that and still use our devices. But we have to know how to do it.
And are you familiar with the settings? Like I just checked them while you were talking, and on an Apple, like I have, you go to settings and then display, and there's something called night shift. And so I just set night shift up to run 23 hours and 59 minutes a day. Right? So it's just on all the time. And that blocks blue light and gives a yellower feel to it. Are you aware of those kind of tools?
Yeah, I have, my Android has a blue light filter
Mm-hmm.
on the screen, but I don't trust that because these little computers that we carry around are emitting way beyond the FAA standards. And they know it. And if you don't read this fine print, which is there, but you got to read every word of like an iPhone's manual, then you can find what the real frequency and the output. But yeah, I'd say definitely I've got my blue light filter on my Android, but I don't use my Android for anything other than texting, and that very, rarely.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point, which is, Apple's making the product that poisons me, and I'm choosing to trust their solution for remedying the poison. That's an interesting situation.
Yeah, I used to be I was a Pollyanna girl. Yeah, you tell me and everybody tells the truth and I believe it, and the government takes care of me and my priest takes care of me and everybody takes care of me, and that doesn't hold, I'm totally the opposite now. So I'm sorry that I have to be in this camp, but the more I learn, the more I learn. And the more I know I don't know. All right. So, okay. So I had a cancer patient that came into me one day.